this wide enough for you? If not, I think you might be crazy. Let's correct the fisheye effect. Now, we're getting this entire wide shot with this tiny little lens. And if you think I'm sitting really far away from my camera, I'm not. I'm touching it right now. This little thing is making this super wide shot. Let's talk about it. So disclaimer up front, Pergear actually sent me these lenses for review for you guys, and I get to keep them free of charge, so let that factor in where it may, but I'm glad I get to keep them, because another disclaimer, this is fun. Look at the room we have here. Guys, seriously, okay, I'm in aps-c mode now on my Sony camera. They have the Nikon Z mount, or Z mount, depending on where you're from, the Micro Four Thirds mount here, and they also have the Fuji X mount. I don't see the Canon mount anywhere, so maybe you Canon shooters are out of luck, but maybe they're going to make one later. I don't know. Now, this lens has a field of view of 150 degrees. It is a fully manual lens, and it is f8. I have my lights turned way up in my studio here so that you can see my pretty face. Normally, I don't have to keep my lights this bright because I shoot on much lower apertures. I'll shoot on like a 1.7 or a 2.8. I rarely shoot on an f8. But an f8 is okay on this lens, and I'll explain in a minute. So what came in the mail was just this little plastic box with the lens inside, which is kind of cool, because now you have a little carrying case for your lens when you're not using it. Nice. And technically these are aps-c lenses, so on my full-frame Sony, I'm shooting in aps-c mode, and they say they're 10mm lenses. Now people in the comments don't argue about equivalence. The equivalent full frame is 15mm on the mode I'm using right now. And on Micro Four Thirds, the equivalent field of view on a full frame is 20mm, which is really wide for a Micro Four Thirds camera, and it might be really handy for us GH5 Olympus shooters, you know what I'm saying? Now, with my GH5, it's a Micro Four Thirds camera, so the fisheye effect is not that dramatic. You don't get as wide of a field of view, but you are getting a pretty pretty wide field of view for the Micro Four Thirds camera, and that's really awesome for a cheap little pancake lens that you can just take anywhere. You need that wide shot, and you're like, I got a Micro Four Thirds camera, what am I going to do? Boom! Pergear! Gotcha! So this is the adorable little lens on the GH5. This is the field of view you can expect if you're using a Micro Four Thirds camera. And you may think, well, it's a lot less wide than that Sony full frame, and it is, but for a Micro Four Thirds, this is really good. In fact, for a Micro Four Thirds user, this might be much more useful because you don't find a lot of really wide angle lenses for the Micro Four Thirds system. So look at this, I'm touching the lens right here, but you can still see plenty in the shot, which is great. The best I have is 14mm, 14 to 42. It came with my little G7 camera, and so I will show you that the widest angle I previously could get. This is the field of view with the 14mm I have on my GH5 now. As you can see, it is nowhere near as wide. In fact, let me give him a little G7, hang on. And the reason I'm bringing up my G7 here is because it's the smallest camera I have, and with this little pancake lens on it, it is so discreet. One of the descriptors for the lens is it's great for street photography, and it is. You can just take it, take a snapshot, and you get everything. You don't have to worry about focusing, you don't have to worry about framing, composition. You just, hey, you see something you like on the street, click, then go home and post, you know, and then crop it down, do whatever you want. And some of those Sony bodies, or the Fuji bodies, or a bunch of the Micro Four Thirds, some of them are so small, even smaller than my little G7 here. So you talk about a pocketable, discreet, street photography camera, absolutely fantastic. And you'll also see a couple times in this video, you can use them on the full frame mode, and you will see the vignetting around the sides, the black corners. But by the time you correct the footage to get rid of the fisheye effect, because, you know, a lot of times you don't want that fisheye effect, so you want things to be straight. And by the time you do that, you'll get rid of the vignetting once you apply the corrections. But there are people who would want the fisheye effect, and you may be saying, who wants the fisheye effect, Mark? And I'll tell you who right here. Wikipedia says that many planetariums are now using the fisheye lens for projection of the night sky or other digital content onto the interior of a dome. So if you own a planetarium, you may want to get this lens. Flight simulators, the IMAX Dome similarly use it. Ooh, this is a good one. Fisheye lenses are used in point of view pornography to make things right in front of the camera look bigger. And if you think I'm kidding, go to the Wikipedia fisheye lens description. It is there. Here is the fisheye effect corrected in the aps-c mode. And here is the fisheye effect corrected in the full frame mode. The focus range is from about 30 centimeters to infinity. Now here is how you focus on it. It's just, it has this tiny little lever. It's pretty clever actually. It has this tiny little lever, and then you move it to the right there, and to get it to the close focusing distance. You put it down in the middle to shoot most of your stuff, and then if you want it to focus on infinity, which you may want with this lens depending on how you're using it, you put it all the way over to the left when you're facing the lens, that is. So let's give a demonstration. Here we are. I appear to be in focus here. I'm about 30 centimeters away from the lens. I'm just looking up at my monitor. Is this a nice shot? Do I look so nice? Yeah? Why don't you take a screenshot, put it on your computer. Look, this is how close I am to the lens. As my pinky is almost touching the lens. I don't want to do it. I don't want to get a smudge on my new little lens. So now I'll do it on the medium shot right there. And then I will put it very at the back there. So I think I'm still in focus, really. Now you can see right there is a bit of focus breathing, So you don't want to be doing dramatic focus pulls with your 10mm f8 lens. You're never going to do that. But just bear in mind that when you focus on the back there, you're going to get a little bit of a different field of view. Huh? Oh, whoa, whoa. Okay, that's enough of that. The thing weighs nothing. It's like 80 grams. And that's one of the beauties about this lens. It is so small. It is so light. You can stick it in your bag. Here is why I think this is a very valuable lens. Number one, it is like $80 American. So it's very cheap for a lens. And number two, I like the image quality that's coming out of it. But you get that super wide field of view. So let's say you're going somewhere and you don't want to take a bunch of wide angle lenses, or you don't have wide angle lenses. You take this cheap little credit card thin lens, you stick it in your bag, and you're ready to go if you ever need some really wide shots, for filming video. Now for photography, I think it's even more useful. Like I have a Sony 16-35, and often I'm shooting landscapes at 16 millimeters. I'm focusing at infinity, and I'm shooting at an f8. These are pretty much my settings. And a lot of landscapers like to use those type of settings. Landscapers. Do you call landscape photographers landscapers? Probably a different job. So I'll just show you some shots here of the back of my house. Sorry guys, it's COVID times. I can't really go anywhere. Toronto is in a pretty serious lockdown. So I'm just going to take pictures of the back of my house, and I'll just compare the lenses so that you can see the image quality. So that's it. I hope you liked the review. If you did, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. And I will leave links to the lenses below in the description. And now, if you don't mind, I will go use this fisheye lens for my planetarium photos.